Hey guys, what is up? And it is me, Caleb Coho, back again for another episode of Nerdgasm right here on Multiplex Entertainment. Last week, you saw me actually get in the ring, get my hands dirty, and play against Nico Rigoli. But now I get to actually host the show properly the way it was meant to be done in the first place. And it's pretty awesome because the person who I stepped in for is competing this week, and one of the people who judged last week is also competing. So our competitors tonight are indeed Eli the Showman McCaig and Jim the Wolf Green. It's going to be a fun match, but I'm not here alone. As always, I have two judges to help me out. And tonight, those two judges are the movie nerd, Dominic Rizzi, and Robert the Hobbit Parker. How you guys doing?
I'm looking forward to this.
I'm doing good.
And
Caleb, I do have to thank you for actually getting my nickname right this time.
We've got it, but we're going to end up giving you a new one anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Good luck, man. I'm saying good luck. I'm sticking to it.
All right, well, you know what? We'll talk about it off air.
Yes, we will.
All right, so basically, essentially how Nerdgasm works is it's our Inner Geekdom debate show. There's going to be 3 prep rounds of debate from each competitor and a speed round. First one to score 5 points wins the match. If you saw last week, you basically understand how it works. It's kind of a standard debate sort of format. Before we start, I'm going to get thoughts from our players. Eli the Showman McCaig, how you feel about being on Nerdgasm?
Well, I was a host and judge last week, and I saw how fun it was, and I'm really looking forward to being a player this time. And having Jim Green as my opponent, that's very exciting. I've been told that he's going to yell at me, so I'm looking forward to being shouted at.
Don't worry, we will keep him in check as much as we can. But of course, Jim.
Yeah, like
is,
I tried to
keep
you in check.
Yeah, Jim's a bit of a mind of his own. Speaking of Jim, how is that mind of your own?
I don't know where he got that idea from. I'm a very calm person who does not ever get upset with anyone, and I'm very calm. You know, it's a good time. I like this guy. He's nice.
How do you feel about being on Nerdgasm this week, Jim?
It feels good after watching one of the Kings of Winter absolutely decimate the furry guy. That was awesome. And yeah, so now I'm ready to step into the ring, and then Kings of Winter will be 2-0 in this thing. So, you know, just kind of like a foreshadowing of what the Kings of Winter will be in the team fandom teams in there.
That's true, but as the host, I have to be impartial and listen to the arguments. So bring good arguments so I can pick you. All right, so those are our opponents. This is Nerdgasm, and let's get right into it. Your first topic for tonight, gentlemen, is what is the best Wizarding World film? And we're going to start by throwing it to Jim Green. You have a minute for your opening argument as soon as you speak.
Okay, so I chose Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire for many reasons, which I'll just kind of outline them right now. But it's the first movie in the series to actually have a character die. It's not the 1, 2, and 3 kiddie adventure ones where it's like, oh, hey, look, something's gonna die, guys, and then Harry swoops in to save the day. No, Cedric dies. He straight up dies. Also, it's the first appearance of Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. He is incredible through the entire series, mostly in just that his first scenes at the end of the movie. He is fantastic. And then it also is the movie that expands into the actual Wizarding World compared to the first 3. And it like the Quidditch World Cup. You get 2 new wizarding schools. You actually get to see the Ministry of Magic, which kind of has only been talked about to that point. So that is why I chose Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
All right. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Eli, what'd you pick and why? You got a minute for your opening remarks starting now.
Though some would look at Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone as one of the middle ground films, the point that makes this the best Wizarding World movie is the introductions to many of our favorite characters. It introduced the world to Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson as our lovable leads, and it also had an amazing performance by the late Richard Harris as Professor Dumbledore. This movie was also able to take J.K. Rowling's novel and adapt it faithfully whilst also cutting the unnecessary parts of the novel. This film was also revolutionary when it comes to the Quidditch matches, creating this new special effects that we had not seen before. And it also created the world that we would go on to love And without this movie, none of the other films would be able to work. This movie helped lay the groundwork for this entire universe that many people have gone on to say, oh, without this, we wouldn't have, let's say, Fantastic Beasts, or the second movie, or the third movie. Without the Philosopher's Stone, this universe would not be what it is today.
All right, time. Those are the opening remarks. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone versus Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. All right, gentlemen, you have 5 minutes minimum. Let's hear what the rebuttal, starting with Jim.
Okay, well, first off, let's just say that Richard Harris is the second best Dumbledore in the series. So let's just throw that point out of the window, because he was goodish in this. He's okay as Dumbledore, but he's just not even comparison to Michael Gambon, I think is how you say the name.
When you look at Richard Harris as Dumbledore, he is basically what was written to be Dumbledore. It wasn't Michael Gambon. When you read a book and even look at the illustrations of Dumbledore, you see basically Richard Harris's version of Dumbledore. He is basically what Dumbledore was supposed to be. So his performance reflects that of what he was supposed to be. And Michael Gambon had to follow up the great performance of Richard Harris. Without Richard Harris, Michael Gambon would probably be like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? He had a platform with Richard Harris. So without Richard Harris, we wouldn't have Michael Gambon's portrayal. So I believe that point is a little moot, because without Richard Harris, Michael Gambon would probably be floundering.
Oh, Michael Gambon is just especially in the fourth movie, you get his whole debate of having to deal with Harry. He puts this thing on there, and then you can see in Gambon's performance the actual like strain that it is taking on him, that Harry has been like pulled into this Tri-Wizard tournament that everyone dies in. But Richard Harris is just like, oh yeah, it's that old guy. It's like, yeah, he's really cool.
Harris plays the character. Richard Harris plays the mentor character, which is Dumbledore. Dumbledore is the mentor, and Richard Harris portrays that side of the loving mentor that Michael Gambon really doesn't touch upon in the later movies. Richard Harris is the person that creates the lovable mentor that we all know. He is basically a Merlin-esque character, and that's what Dumbledore is supposed to be. But Michael Gambon never actually touches upon the Merlin-esque feel to him.
Okay, well, let's just throw out the Dumbledores, because my movie actually has stakes to it, because you have this looming sense of David Tennant, who in the few scenes that he's in is actually awesome. And so you know he's going to do something. And then at the beginning of the movie, it sets the stakes right off the bat, other than like having to set up this like, aren't the Dursleys evil? Look at them. And here's a cake that Hagrid made. And
you're talking about stakes you're talking about stakes in your movie, when the entire Tri-Wizard tournament, it's always like the point of this tournament, and when they say is, if you fail, it's okay. We're going to save the people that you were supposed to save. But in the end, there are no stakes, because even if they mess up in the Tri-Wizard tournament, someone's going to save them in the end. Whereas in my movie, it introduces the stake of the potential of Harry dying and Hermione dying.
Somebody actually dies in the Goblet of Fire. And at the beginning of the movie, you have literal terrorists. You have terrorists at the beginning of the movie setting the stakes of, oh, hey, look, there's this Quidditch World Cup. Everyone's happy. Oh, here's some Death Eaters to come and screw everything up. And it's just that opening scene of where it's dark and they're coming through with the very...
yes, and you're talking about how it's dark. You're talking about how it's dark.
Except black, and they're just coming through, and they're just destroying everything, and that just sets this.
You're talking about how dark the film is. The film is, to maybe some people, too dark, and to that people are a little eschewed from it, and they really don't want to touch the movie. Whereas my movie, it actually brings the light. It actually brings out the fun of Harry Potter. And people, when they go watch a Harry Potter film or a Wizarding World film, they want to have fun. They want to be amazed by the magic that is happening. And when you watch Philosopher's Stone, you get that sense of amazement, that fun. You get that sense of, wow, I can't believe all this is happening. When you watch The Goblet of Fire, all of it is doom, gloom, die, die, die. No one wants to see that in a film that has magic. They want to be like astounded and eyes open. Like, wow.
Do you know what's astounding? Do you know what's astounding? Dragons. And there's a fantastic dragon scene in The Goblet of Fire to where Harry's flying around on that amazing broom, and you see this.
And you want to know what else is astounding? What else is astounding is the first
mirror.
feeling
Oh,
of flying.
Look, Harry's standing in a mirror. Look, there's his dead parents. Oh, yay, cool.
No, what's astounding is the first feeling of flying, and when we finally get that surge of, oh, he can fly, he can fly, he can fly. That's amazing. You get that rush. When seeing a dragon, sure, it's great, but we have seen dragons in so many other movies. By that time, we have seen The Reign of Fire. We have seen Dragonheart. We have seen The Dragon Slayer. We have seen dragons. So it's like, oh, dragons, yeah, another dragon. Who cares? But in this one, it's the first feeling of, oh, this is magic, and that's what's so great about it. When, in your movie, it's dark, it's very depressing, and sure, like, someone died, but when that character dies, no one truly cares about that character. What they care about are the main characters, and in Philosopher's Stone, that's when we go, oh, the main characters are important, and we care about the main characters.
Okay, so that's our rebuttal. I'm going to give you each a minute for closing arguments, starting with Eli.
The Philosopher's Stone is the movie is the only movie in the entire franchise when people look at it and go, wow, this is amazing. This sense of fun and adventure is starting with this film. When Goblet of Fire, we've already seen it multiple times, and then you make it dark? No, we don't want to see that. We want to see the fun. We want to see the adventure. And Richard Harris delivers a Merlin-esque performance as Dumbledore. And even with the introduction of Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson, you see the amazement that they have when they see the magic too. And then as a child watching the film, you reflect and you relate to them. When you watch Goblet of Fire, you don't relate to seeing people die. You relate to seeing the wonderment and amazement to this magic.
All right, and time. All right, Jim, your rebuttal when you start talking.
Goblet of Fire is clearly better than Sorcerer's Stone. Eli wants to talk about how it sets up this amazement and wonderment of the entire series when it really only sets up the wonderment and amazement of the rest of the film and like some of the next one that Chris Columbus also does. Michael Gambon is better in, I think, Goblet of Fire than Richard Harris in the first movie. You got Papa Gleason Brennan in there playing. He's portraying like a character portraying another character, and he's like playing David Tennant, playing him. It's like fantastic. And then just the entirety of the world, of the Wizarding world, comes into this movie with two schools. You see all these new creatures that's in the lake. You see the Quidditch World Cup with the Irish and the Bulgarians. And then, of course, that ending scene where you have actual character death, real stakes, and the return of Voldemort in the form of Ralph Fiennes that lasts throughout the rest of the movies and sets the tone of basically the rest of the series, which are the best films.
All right, time. All right, so those were the arguments, Goblet of Fire and Sorcerer's Stone. This is difficult, so in order to kind of get some more food for thought, I'll start with Dom. What are your thoughts on this one?
So am I just giving my thoughts or am I giving my verdict too?
Both.
Okay, so my thoughts, back and forth, both sides brought up very good points. As a lifelong diehard Harry Potter fan, I saw both points. I disagreed with a couple of the points that Jim brought up. But again, I'm holding it to the argument. Jim, although I am going to fact check you on one thing that you said, though, which was factually incorrect. You said Goblet of Fire is the first time you see the Ministry of Magic offices. That is actually incorrect. The first time you see the Ministry is not until the Order of the Phoenix, when Arthur brings Harry there for his Ministry hearing. You don't actually see the inside of the Ministry of Magic in its current form in Goblet of Fire. To my knowledge, though, that is the...
You do in the Barty Crouch Jr. flashback scene.
Yeah.
In his trial.
Never mind that. Okay, ignore me then. You're right. So, in that case, oh man, it's tough because both sides brought up really, really good points. Ultimately, I think it ultimately just comes down to a matter of personal preference. But I will say, though, for his arguments in terms of Sorcerer's Stone definitely had an infinitely more difficult task of setting up the world versus Goblet of Fire, which for all the good things that that film accomplished, it did still have a few setbacks and just didn't have the overall massive hurdle because Harry Potter was already more well received by that point. So
Eli didn't say that, though. That's not in Eli's argument.
Yeah, we have to
You
give
have to
to
go
the
based on
arguments.
what they said.
yeah, no, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
We don't want to be like Ryan Permison.
Yeah,
No, you're right. No,
exactly.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Oh man, I like both arguments. That's the problem. There wasn't. That's the problem. There wasn't like any one point that kind of overtook the rest. They both brought up like really good points that both helped to satisfy like both films in why they're good in their own respective right. So, based on the argument, I'll go with Eli.
All right, so that's one for Eli. Robert, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, both players brought up good points, but I definitely think Jim had the better argument. Eli did say a lot of things that I agree with. Without the first one really establishing the characters, adapting the novel well, the world creation, all that kind of stuff. I think Jim's point of, yeah, Philosopher's Stone was important in the creation of the world, but Jim really emphasized Goblet of Fire's expanse on that world beyond the kiddie elements, talking about the stakes, talking about the terrorists and the dragons and all the looming threat and the real death. I thought Jim's argument that it's not just about what the first one was, it's about what film took what the first one did and made it its best. I think Jim definitely had the better argument here.
All right, so that comes down to me. When I look at it, the big things I took away from Eli is that he said the first film sets up a lot of great things, like a lot of magical elements, and that Richard Harris is great. But I think Jim had a lot of good counters to that by bringing up how it only sets up the magic of the Columbus films and how it changes a bit in upcoming films. I definitely I agree with his points about how while Eli's points about it being revolutionary, I thought were valid. Jim's points about expanding the world really resonated with me a little bit more. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Jim. So Jim gets the point on that one.
I am retired after that one round. Thank you, guys. Bye. No, I'm kidding.
Congratulations.
I'm kidding.
Congratulations. No hard feelings. No hard feelings.
All right. So with that, Jim is up 1-0 going into the second round, which the question here in the second round is our pitch question for the match, which is pitch a Doctor Who spin-off series. And so since Jim started, we're going to start with Eli on this one. You're going to have a minute to give us the general sort of beginnings of your pitch, and then you can expand upon it in your next 5 minutes. So whenever you start talking, begin.
My idea for a Doctor Who spinoff would not deal with any major character from the universe. In fact, it would solely deal with an event from that universe. My show would focus on the last great time war set between the 8th and 9th Doctor. It is a time frame that has not been explored at all on screen. The show, in fact, would not even focus on the Doctor. Instead, it would focus on other Gallifreyans that were a part of the war. Now, does that mean the Doctor wouldn't be in it? No, it would be ridiculous to do a show without the Doctor involved. But instead, this would be an anthology piece with each season focusing on another character. It would be done in a way that would show this war's effect on many people, not only the Doctor.
All right. Alrighty. So the last great time war being the premise of Eli's series. All right, Jim, what have you got?
Okay, so I also went with kind of a side character situation, but I would go with something involving the Shadow Proclamation. And if you aren't familiar with the Shadow Proclamation, they are the outer space cops, which are first seen in Stolen Earth when the Earth goes missing. So really, with the Shadow Proclamation being outer space cops, for one, that idea is just kind of cool, and it's kind of like it kind of has like a Star Trek element to it, but you can go more leaning on the justice and the keeping the justice of it over like a Star Trek's where it's like peacekeeping missions and stuff. And I think there's a lot to explore there, because there's like CSI type shows, NCIS's procedurals. You could do that if you wanted. You could do something completely different that's more villains focused, and you also, with my idea, you have endless possibilities for Doctor cameos. You could have Clara and Macy Williams Me show up. You could have really anybody you wanted, because they've been around forever, be on the show as well in short stints, as well as any doctor that is physically able to be in the show.
All right, time. All right, so we have The Last Great Time War versus The Shadow Proclamation. All right, we're going to open the floor to you guys. And we'll start with Jim. What is the rebuttal here?
I think the Time War, I mean, it gives a good idea-ish, I guess, for between oh no, wait, it's not between 8. It's after Paul McGann regenerates into John Hurt and then into Christopher Eccleston. It gives good ideas, I guess, but I mean, an anthology series, I think True Detective Season 1 showed us, like, well, when you do a kind of copish show, or when you do a cop show's my idea, so thanks. But when
well,
you do
my show wouldn't be a cop show. It would all be about
I know the
people.
anthology.
See, look, your cop show. When I heard your cop show, I was like, oh, so you want to do Green Lantern? You basically want to make a TV show about Green Lantern. Oh, that's cool. But this isn't Green Lantern universe. This is Doctor Who. So you have to choose sort of a different idea.
It's a Green Lantern idea, but in Doctor Who, and with and you don't have to be.
If you want something with Green Lantern, you can just go ask the people at CW to make your TV show. My TV show is strictly relegated to a Doctor Who show that you couldn't use in a different universe. My show is very focused on the people of Gallifrey. And heck, even when you do the anthology show, you can do a season of the show where it's just focused on the Daleks. And even because there was this one episode in Doctor Who, the Ninth Doctor, where it's about that one Dalek. And it's just the entire idea about an entire season about these Daleks. And also there was a character that was known as the Good Dalek in one of the seasons. I can't remember which one.
That's like the worst episode of Eccleston. So why would you want a season focused on Daleks? That sounds terrible.
But then you can have the idea of that one Dalek turning against the Daleks, having that good Dalek, and seeing what happens to him and through this entire Last Great Time War. This entire thing is about this war, which has never been explored territory. No one has touched it. No one knows what actually happened during this war. Your show is about
touched it during
that
the
we've seen
anniversary when Tennant shows back
never
up with
actually
Matt
seen
Smith.
the war. But we've never actually seen the war. This entire thing.
I mean,
but this would actually be the
time war thing. It doesn't sound. It sounds like it would get kind of like The Walking Dead, even from different perspectives.
When I first conceived it, I would look at it as sort of like the 100-Year War, or like a show about the Crusades. Like, this is what happened during this time frame. This is what happened during the war. You would find out what led to the Gallifreyans versus the Daleks, and then you would see the entire events, how people died, what people were affected, how the Gallifreyans
the 100-Year
were
War is
affected
an
by the
Avatar reference. And do you know what they showed us of the 100-Year War? The beginning, one episode in the middle-ish of Firelord Sozin, and then the end of it, which is just the entirety series of Avatar. Nobody really wants to see, oh, here's all this all this drawn out war stuff, especially with
no one wants to see.
So it's like,
no one wants
here's
to see
Bill, and now we're gonna follow Bill all the way through for a season, and then we're gonna.
And no one wants to see a show that's a rip off of Green Lantern
on the other side of Gallifrey, and it's like, oh, we already know what happened.
If I wanted to see a space cop show, I would watch Green Lantern, but that show doesn't exist, and I don't want to watch a rip off of it. So I'd rather watch a show about an actual war. I want to know what happened during the war. I want to see what happened. I want to see how the Doctor, what truly turned him into this warlike character. I want to see why at the end he's very John Hurt-esque, because in my opinion, John Hurt is one of the strongest Doctors, and he only appeared in a few episodes. I want to see what happened to that.
John Hurt.
And even
John
though
Hurt
he would
was
only
an okay doctor because he's John Hurt. I think it's better that he's John Hurt in Doctor Who than he's an actual better doctor. It doesn't.
Yeah, but I don't. But like when you talk
and
about
if
your
you
cop
want
show,
anthology series, you can do an anthology series with the Shadow Proclamations where you can do it. Oh, here's stuff that happens during William Hartnell's season. Here's stuff that happens during Tom Baker. Here's where they were during Genesis of the Dalek. Here's what happens
you're
during.
saying it's a green. You're basically saying it's a Green Lantern show. I don't want to watch a Green Lantern show.
Yeah,
if I wanted to watch a Green Lantern show,
would actually.
I would watch a Green
we're
Lantern
not even
show.
talking about the Green Lantern. That's your only comeback.
I know, but this is what
everyone
your
could
show
agree.
is.
A Green
That's
Lantern
what
show
your
would be
show is.
awesome, but this is a Green Lantern show with a Doctor Who skin
It's
and
a
it's
ripoff.
British.
And look,
Ripoffs
no
can
one
be
wants to watch a Doctor Who
amazing.
skin Green Lantern show. If they want to watch a Green Lantern show, they want a Green Lantern show, not a Doctor Who skin of a Green Lantern show. My show is actually talking about a war, and people want to know what happened during that war. No one cares about these tops.
You could show what happens during that war with my show as well.
Okay, so we're gonna get into the final closing arguments here. We're gonna start with Eli on your final thoughts.
My show is about a war that has never been touched upon. No one knows that much about it. No one has seen the actual effects between a majority of these characters. They've only seen the aftermath, but we still don't know how it began. His show, Jim's show, is basically Green Lanterns and Doctor Who. And sure, Green Lanterns and Doctor Who may sound cool, but it's not the Green Lanterns. Green Lanterns is cooler. My show is about an actual event that no one's touched upon. We've seen what happened with his characters. No one has actually seen what this war has done.
All right, time, and we'll go over to Jim.
I think with my show, Eli keeps wanting to bring up that it's just a mix of Doctor Who and Green Lantern, which sort of is true, I suppose. But I mean, Game of Thrones is just a mix-up of The Sopranos and Lord of the Rings. So the marriages can be happy. Nobody wants to see what happens during the Time War. It's depressing. It's super depressing. It's just gonna be episodes and episodes of depression every week. Like, who really needs it? And it's just gonna, I think maybe one season is good, like The Walking Dead, and then it just gets repetitive and lame, even though it's an anthology series. With mine, you can change up the show any way you want. You can, if this time period isn't working, you can jump to another time period. You can jump wherever you want, because the Shadow Proclamation's been around for forever. As long as the Doctor's been around, the Shadow Proclamation has been around. So my show is way more versatile in what you can do with it.
All right, time. Whew. Okay. I think I'll start with this one. I'll let you guys give some time to think. I think both of them brought up solid ideas. Jim mentioned a lot about how it's going to be how the Time War will be depressing and sad and has some good counters. But my biggest thing that I'm hung up on about Jim's is that he agreed when Eli said that it is essentially a Green Lantern show with a Doctor Who skin. And Jim agreed with that. So I feel like that was a bit of an argument killer for me. So I would have to say, based on that, as well as Eli giving me more ideas as to what his show would be than what Jim gave me. Jim gave me some good ideas, but I think Eli gave me just a little bit more. So I am going to give my point to Eli. All right, Robert.
All right. For me, him agreeing that it's sort of a Green Lantern thing didn't bother me because I thought he actually countered it well, bringing up Game of Thrones being just like a fantasy Sopranos. So I thought he actually used that point to his advantage. So I thought that was well argued by Jim. Still, though, I think Jim got a little bit lost just by saying that, oh, my show can be anything. It can be any time period. It can really be anything. I thought Eli had a much more focused argument, and how the Time War was really unexplored, so we can find out something that fans want to know about. I don't know if I completely agree with it being an anthology, but that's just a personal thing. So yeah, I think Eli had a much more focused argument. And really just emphasizing that's an unexplored time period, I thought was really helpful for him. So I'm going to go with Eli.
All right, so Eli is going to get the point for round 2. Don, would you have said different?
I actually would have, but here's the thing. I don't feel like I am well qualified enough to judge this round, only because I am somebody who has never seen a single episode of Doctor Who. So to me, I had no idea what anybody else was talking about.
It doesn't matter. I haven't either.
But
it's.
what I was gonna say
and I have never seen anything Harry Potter outside Fantastic Beasts, and I just
that's the thing because what I was gonna Coho, first off, you need to fix that. Second off, what I was gonna say is the thing that stood out to me the most is the fact that because Eli's only rebuttal from what I heard outside of all the Doctor Who menagerie seemed to only be, oh, it's Green Lantern in space, it's Green Lantern in space, it's Green Lantern in space, and then the way that Jim countered that by saying, oh, well, Game of Thrones is basically Sopranos meets Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, it's not too far out of the realm of possibility, even though there's a lot more involved. So I would have gone Jim, but again, my vote does not matter. So
okay,
Eli should have went first.
I think I did go first.
Oh, I meant Rizzy. My bad. Too many eyes.
Okay. All right. So with that, we are tied up 1-1 going into the last prepped round, which things are gonna get gory, and that is the best Phase 1 MCU film.
this is going to be interesting. Now, this includes the Avengers, obviously, right? Because
the Phase 1, Iron Man through the Avengers, the first phase. And so with that, let's go and start with Jim. You have a minute for your opening argument. What'd you pick and why?
Well, let me just tell you. Let me just read you off a little story here. It's 2008, and this company that went bankrupt and tried to sell all of their characters for 12 cents to Sony and whoever else would buy it, but got denied a million times, is going to produce their own movie. And behind it is some guy, some actor that's only ever made some terrible movie called Made with him and Vince Vaughn and Elf. And that's Jon Favreau. And then the actor is a guy, the lead actor is an actor that fell off completely, got in it bad with drugs, and was basically like on a Mickey Rourke level a fall from grace, Robert Downey Jr. This film, 2008's Iron Man, is the biggest risk that Marvel Studios took out of the entirety of the MCU, not just Phase 1, the entirety of the MCU. And it paid off so well that Favreau's directing of it is just amazing. The acting in it is also fantastic. You can there's a few like Jeff Bridges as Obadiah is kind of over the top cheesy, but like even Leslie Bibb in it as the chick that Tony bangs and then Pepper takes out the trash. She's solid in what little time that she has. That's why I think that 2008's Iron Man is the best, not only Phase 1 film out of any MCU film.
Okay, time. All right, Eli, you're going to get your minute here, and whenever you're ready.
When it comes to the first phase of MCU films, it's obvious to choose between Iron Man or the Avengers. However, I feel the best Phase 1 MCU film is Captain America: The First Avenger. The story is a pulp era dream, and the fact that it is a period piece adds so much to its value. The acting in this film is amazing, with Chris Evans becoming Captain America, Haley Atwell showing that her character is more than a damsel in distress, and Hugo Weaving showing his menace as the Red Skull. Also, it shows the great chemistry between Chris Evans and Haley Atwell, and Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan, believing that Chris and Haley can be true love interests, and that Chris and Sebastian can really be best friends. Captain America: The First Avenger is the hidden gem of Phase 1 that people should acknowledge more as a piece of stuff.
All right, time. All right, so now we're going to get into the rebuttal phase, gentlemen. We're going to start with Eli.
Now, as I said before, it is obvious to choose Iron Man as the best Phase 1 MCU film, and because of that, it's a little bit... No, it's because it's a little bit redundant now to look at it. It's now, in my opinion, overhyped. Whenever you say, oh, you should look at this, people watch it and go, it's not as good as everyone's been hyping it up to be. While when you look at Captain America, since not a lot of people are hyping it up as much as Iron Man, they have more of like, okay, let's see how it's going. And when they watch it, they're amazed. They're amazed at the direction of Joe Johnston, who is perfect for period pieces. If you look back at The Rocketeer, it's also a World War II-esque film, which makes him the perfect director for this film. He was born to direct films of science fiction.
He was so perfect for this film that he was replaced by the Russo brothers. Awesome, yeah. Favreau's movies at least get to where he had to just basically say, I don't want to make Iron Man 3, so get Shane Black to do it, and I'll put Neo in it.
No, the reason why he didn't want to make Iron Man 3 is because everyone looked at Iron Man 2 and saw it was a piece of garbage that he directed. Whereas Captain America, the
I mean, when you're coming off of the amazingness of the original Iron Man, of course Iron Man 2 looks bad. Iron Man 2 is almost better than the first Avenger. The first Avenger.
Oh my goodness, that is what Iron Man 2 is better than first Avenger? No.
Look at the chemistry. Look at the chemistry between Haley Atwell after Chris Evans gets hot, and then Bucky and
Chris Evans
Captain
is an
America.
amazing character. Chris Evans is an amazing character and actor from beginning to end. He is able to make you believe that someone that is scrawny can become this big man and still carry the same ideals and values from beginning to end. When you look at Iron Man, it's very much look at us, look at us, and it's very much what? I don't want to look at you all the time. I want to see the good story. I want to see the good villain plot, which doesn't exist. Because Obadiah Stane is so overblown and so much of a caricature of like big businessmen that I'm like, okay, he's not a believable character. Where you look at the Red Skull as a villain and you can believe his villain.
Red Skull literally has a red skull because he stares at a cube for too long. I mean,
that's not even the reason why he has a red skull. Did you watch the movie?
Did you? Oh, hey, how about? Yes, I did watch the movie. I've only seen it once though because it's that unimportant. It's not even the best use of Captain America in any movie. Joe Johnston's use of Captain America when he becomes Captain America isn't even as good.
Captain America, the first Avenger, is important to the entire universe because without that, you wouldn't be introduced to Captain America. You wouldn't be introduced to the ideals that he presents. That sort of sets up his entire motivation throughout the entire universe. When you look at Tony Stark, it's very much, oh, hey, how you doing? I'm Tony Stark. I'm going to be drinking alcohol. Don't worry about it.
Jr. in his role as Tony Stark is one of the most like can't resist roles.
Yeah, but you look at this.
The entire 2010. He's absolutely
he doesn't transform into Tony Stark.
Exactly. Your thing is basing on is Steve's a good guy and then he gets muscles and he's still a good guy. Look how great he is.
Chris Evans is able to transform into a character. Robert Downey Jr. is just like, hey, look at me, I'm playing myself, and I'm like, no, if you want to be an actor, you have to transform into a character. You're only saying that now because he's been Iron Man for 10 years. At the time when this came out, and still now, if you go into it not knowing that Robert Downey Jr. He was a lesser actor than Terrence Howard, the supporting character. When you look at Chris Evans,
he was way better than Terrence Howard in the movie. But at least when you look at Chris Evans, you can be like, okay, this is the main character. I can believe that he's the main character. When you look at Iron Man, it's sort of like, excuse me, Terrence Howard is the bigger named actor here. Why isn't he the main character? Exactly.
When you look at the first Avenger, you can believe that Chris Evans completely is the main character.
Shines him in the entire movie. Also,
okay, let's take out
Prisoner of War scene. The entire Prisoner of War events at the beginning of Iron Man with Chantal and the stuff with Jensen's family. That stuff to get by itself is better and more impactful and more emotional than anything in the first Avenger. Oh, Steve doesn't get to go dancing with Haley Atwell. Oh, shucks.
The entire story behind Abraham Erskine's reason for choosing Captain America or Chris Evans or freaking Steve Rogers as Captain America is the great point of the entire film. That is an important part. If you want to compare it, it's comparative to that scene in Iron Man, but done a whole lot better because Abraham Erskine is able to look at Steve Rogers and says, you are a true hero, and you're the only reason why I am giving this serum. If he would have saw Tony Stark, he would have been like, no, I'm not even touching this. You're not even getting close to this. And Steve Rogers is a better character.
Tony Stark sees what his weapons are doing and killing people and terrorizing the people in the Middle East, and then he immediately
he's not a hero.
The point of war, and he immediately shuts down the weapons division.
Chris Evans plays the hero. Chris Evans plays the fact that he is a hero, and everyone believes it from beginning, middle, and end, that Chris Evans is the hero. When you watch Iron Man, you can't believe that Tony Stark is the hero. Heck, there are times when you even hate him, and that's not what you want in a hero. You want to believe that he is a hero, and Chris Evans is able to deliver that performance. And even to go on from that, First Avenger has a better succinct plot than Iron Man.
Time. Time.
Goddamn.
We're gonna go into final arguments, and I'm gonna start with Jim because he looks like he's gonna explode.
Okay, so the thing that Eli here wants to keep bringing up is that Tony isn't believable as a hero. Which, okay, fair point, I guess, because he's a playboy and he's kind of a pig and he's like super #MeToo at the beginning, whatever. But that's what makes his Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark's performance even better, because he's not of a believable hero, but he is the hero. He sees, after being a prisoner of war and seeing what his weapons were actually doing, and then he finds out that they're dealing under the table and his weapons aren't being used to keep the peace, it's causing terror. He shuts down his weapons division and he focuses on the thing that he built from scraps in a cave that Ralphie from A Christmas Story says, well, I'm not Tony Stark. I mean, the only thing that Eli's movie really has is, oh, look how great chemistry Haley Atwell and Sebastian Stan and Chris Evans has. And, oh, yeah, Steve was a good person before he got big and he's still a good person after. Whoop-de-doo.
Okay, time. All right. And Eli, you're going to get a minute for your closing arguments when you start talking.
To say that Tony Stark grows as a character is also similar to Steve Rogers. He does grow as a character. When he looked at it, he thinks of, oh, I'm just going to work for the government. But then as he sees, he just slowly becomes a government stooge in that movie. He starts to find out for himself, like, no, I need to be proactive. I need to be the hero. And that's what Steve Rogers does. He does become proactive. And the reason why I'm talking about the chemistry between Chris Evans, Sebastian Stan, and Haley Atwell is because Robert Downey Jr., when you look at all of his chemistry, does not work. At least for my three main characters, there is chemistry. When it comes to Iron Man, you can't really believe that anyone else has chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. Captain America, the First Avenger, has a great hero plot. It is a great period piece directed by a great period piece director. And the only reason why he wasn't brought on was because the next two films weren't period pieces. They wanted someone with an eye for period pieces. And when you watch Captain America, you believe that you are in the 1940s, World War II, watching this period.
All right, time. All right. So, solid arguments from both guys. This is difficult. I'll start with Robert this time. What are your thoughts?
Sure. So for this one, it really went for me because I mean, both players supported their own arguments well enough. Really, it came down to who attacked the other person's argument better, and then who counteracted that the best. So, I mean, Jim was basically saying that Eli's movie was forgettable and important, sort of how the character is all good, there's no flaws, kind of boring to watch. Eli was basically saying how there's a bad villain plot, and then also how Tony Stark doesn't change as a character and doesn't grow as a character as the hero. And I thought Jim counteracted that point incredibly well, saying that him not growing as a character and him not being the hero only helps to serve the performance even more. I thought that point from Jim in his closing really just sold it for me, so I'm going to go Jim.
All right, Dom, since you didn't get to go last time, we'll go to you. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going Jim as well because I definitely agree with a lot of the points that he made. My personal thoughts on Iron Man versus the First Avenger aside, I also feel like a lot of Eli's points that he brought up for the film itself didn't actually reference the quality of the First Avenger, but more so the quality of those characters being used in later films versus Jim, especially with the point that he brought up about how Tony Stark's arc in the film felt like a much more strong arc because, especially going back to the point where he references the bit with Tony and Yinsen's family in the beginning is arguably stronger than anything that happens in the First Avenger. I don't agree with that entirely, but I see what he's going for. So for that, I give Jim the point this round.
All right, so it doesn't matter what I think. Jim gets the points. We're 2-1 going into the speed round. Very quickly, I'll say I would have also gone with Jim just because the argument that Eli presented, he did give me, I think Eli gave me some good information about the plot of this film and a lot about chemistry, and he tried to attack Jim's Downey Jr. character well, but I think Jim's counter to that was so solid, turning the argument back on Eli that Eli I don't think just could completely recover from. So I would have gone with Jim as well. All right, so here we go into this speed round, gentlemen. The speed round is going to work like this. You're each going to get 20 seconds to answer the question for your main point and 15-second rebuttal. each. It's very fast paced. And when I throw out the question, first one who says the answer gets it. Kind of straightforward. All right. So, any questions, guys?
No.
Good, Jim.
Okay. All right. Then here we go into your first speed round question, which is, who is the best doctor?
David Tennant.
All right. Eli has David Tennant.
I will go with Christopher Eccleston.
Whew.
Oh, Christopher Eccleston versus
No love for Tom
David
Baker.
Tennant. No love for Matt Smith, who is my personal favorite either. All right. So Eli, you talked first, which means you're going to get 20 seconds when you start talking to give your argument.
David Tennant was able to join the Doctor Who franchise and reinvent the entire series just by first being just popping up for the first time. Christopher Eccleston only was there to rejuvenate the show, but without David Tennant, you wouldn't get the sudden surge of fandom that Doctor Who has. David Tennant is the one that made fans love Doctor Who again. Without him, Doctor Who.
Time. All right. And Jim, you're going to have 20 seconds to go when you start talking.
You never even get to David Tennant if Eccleston completely fails as the Doctor, which he does not. They wanted him back even in the 50th anniversary episode, but it was something that he no longer wanted to do. His relationship with Rose is actually the best relationship that Rose has. Like the Tennant relationship is terrible, and he has the episode in which Captain Jack is debuted. The "Where's My Mommy" episode is fantastic.
All right, Eli, you have 15 seconds to rebut the moment you start talking.
You told Christopher Eccleston to have Tennant, but you don't need. You need just Tennant to be Tennant. And again, he is the reason why that Doctor Who fandom is where it is. Without David Tennant, no one would love Doctor Who. And Christopher Eccleston was just a waste when he was there. No one cares about Eccleston. They care about Tennant and Tennant alone.
All right. And Jim.
Christopher Eccleston is an actual better Doctor. The only thing that David Tennant is actually good at is being good looking, as well as Matt Smith. The only reason that it got popular off of that was because of teenage girls falling in love with David Tennant, as also exemplified by people hating Peter Capaldi because he's not a 20-something hot.
All right. So I'll start. Jim did a good job of kind of tearing down David Tennant's credibility just by being the hot boy actor. But I feel like Eli presented some better cases as to why his Doctor is better in the long term of the show. But I think Jim countered it really well by bringing up that there wouldn't be a David Tennant without a Christopher Eccleston, and that Eccleston has more to do in his season than Tennant. So I'm going to give it to Jim, and we'll go over to Dom. What are your thoughts?
Kind of the same thing with you, Caleb, only I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go with Eli because, again, I feel like the fact that Jim's closing argument only felt like it was to tear down Tennant by saying that because teenage girls were only into Tennant, and as a result, that's why Doctor Who got popular again. I felt like that was a weak comeback, and and Eli ended up bringing up better points as to why Tennant worked better as a Doctor rather than Eccleston. So for that, I'm going to go Eli.
All right, and Robert, you get to break the tie. Which way are you swinging?
Yeah, Jim killed that. I thought Eli said 2 points the entire time. He said it reinvented the series and made like the fandom what it is. He said that in his opening argument. He repeated the exact same thing without bringing any new points in the second half. Jim also had an episode name dropped, so that was a specific example instead of just saying he's a good Doctor, which is what Eli did. And I thought Jim actually had points against Tennant. Eli didn't have any points against Eccleston. Jim, I think, handedly took that one.
All right, so Jim takes that one. It's 3-1 going into the fourth speed round question, gentlemen, which is, who should direct a Batman Beyond film?
Christopher McQuarrie.
Christopher
Matthew
McQuarrie and Matthew Vaughn. All right, so Christopher McQuarrie and Matthew Vaughn. All right, Jim, you said your answer first, so you're going to get 20 seconds to go when you are ready.
Christopher McQuarrie is the best option just because if you look at the last two Mission Impossible films, which are the best ones, they have the best stunts that have been in the series, as well as some of the best action set pieces in it, as well as like Henry Cavill as the villain. I think if you brought that to a Batman type of film, it would be absolutely phenomenal, and you could have a real villain instead of some garbage Jared Leto Joker.
Time. All right, and Eli, your rebuttal when you start talking.
No, his opening.
Or your
Opening argument.
opening
Yeah, it's not the same as rebuttal.
Yeah, your opening argument.
Just rebuttal me. Don't give any points, Eli.
When you start talking.
Matthew Vaughn is the better choice just for the simple fact that he is able to work with a younger cast and make sure a younger cast can be believable when he writes it. And also he's proved that he can handle humor, which Terry McGinnis, as Batman, does have humor more so than Bruce Wayne. Matthew Vaughn knows how to carry that comedy and the young-esque of Batman to work together in one film.
Time. All right. Jim, your 15-second rebuttal when you start speaking.
I think Matthew Vaughn's shtick only really works for a very short amount of time, as evidenced by the Golden Circle being very lackluster compared to the Kingsman: The Secret Service being great. I think Matthew Vaughn's kind of style would be wear kind of thin.
All right. And Eli, your 15-second rebuttal when you're ready.
Christopher McQuarrie seems like he cannot handle a young character. Well, Matthew Vaughn has proven that he can write a young character and make him believable to an audience. That is exactly what Matthew Vaughn would do with Terry McGinnis. He would make him a believable character, where Christopher McQuarrie would only focus on the adults. So you need to have a strong, young character.
Okay. Robert, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this one?
Wait, didn't Robert go first last time?
Oh, yeah, you're right. We'll start with
Sorry,
Robert.
Robert.
Sorry.
No,
you're good.
Okay.
Right. Here's the thing. For ironically enough, Robert, for the same thing that you brought up against Eli the last time, I'm actually going to go against Eli on this one because, again, Eli only seems to bring up the same point over and over again, which is that Matthew Vaughn is good working with a young cast versus Jim. Jim, I'm actually going to give you the one simply for the fact that you brought up a point about Matthew Vaughn, who is one of my personal favorite working directors today, that I didn't even realize, which is that his shtick is getting old. And now that I think about it, that is kind of the case because the Golden Circle did certainly evidence that the thing that he did so well with Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class, and the first Kingsman now seems to be dying out. So for that point alone, just for bringing up a perspective that like I had not thought about before, I'm going to give you the point there.
All right, that's one for Jim. Robert, what are your thoughts?
I think, well, Eli definitely did better in this argument. I'm also going to give it to Jim once again because of the very specifics. Eli, I do agree that, Vaughn does have humor and he will work well with that younger cast, but Jim name-dropped Golden Circle, Jim name-dropped the last two Mission Impossibles, and used those to support his arguments. So I think Jim had a lot more specifics, which really helped him in this one. So I'm going to also say Jim.
All right, so my vote doesn't matter. Jim, you're up to 4-1 going to the third speed round question. I would have gone with Eli, actually, because I think Jim did a good job of countering the young cast idea. Jim didn't give me too much more to go off of with McQuarrie than what Eli gave me. But yeah, we'll go to the next speed round question, which is, if Doctor Strange went to Hogwarts, what house would he be a part of? Give you some time to think about that one.
Ravenclaw.
All right. Eli says Ravenclaw, and Jim?
I will say Hufflepuff.
Wow.
All right.
And you
Ravenclaw,
did say Doctor Strange, right? Because you cut out a little bit.
Yes,
Doctor
you did say
Strange.
Doctor
Yes,
Strange.
Okay, just making sure. I didn't want to.
No,
Like
Dr.
Benedict
Strange. Dr. Hugo Strange.
Not Doctor Who, Doctor Strange. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so Eli, you went first. You're going to get 20 seconds to start about Ravenclaw when you're ready.
It's very obvious that Doctor Strange would be in Ravenclaw, simply for the fact that when you watch the movie Doctor Strange, he's constantly studying, constantly trying to better himself. And even when he talks about his time in middle school, he was always making the higher grades. And that's exactly what Ravenclaw is. They are always studying to make sure that they are the smartest people in the entire Hogwarts house. And that is why Doctor Strange is in Ravenclaw.
Time. All right, Jim, you're 20 seconds when you're ready.
Doctor Strange does have Ravenclaw qualities, but I picked Hufflepuff because one of the main characteristics of a Hufflepuff is loyalty, and as displayed in the Doctor Strange film, he has loyalty to Rachel McAdams, even though he pushes her away for a little bit. And in Infinity War, his loyalty to the Time Stone and then towards his friends at the end is Hufflepuff.
All right, Eli, your 15-second rebuttal when you're ready.
Though you talk about his loyalty to Rachel McAdams and to his friends, he also shows that he does not care about his friends when it comes to that Infinity Stone in Avengers Infinity War. Whereas we always see him in Doctor Strange studying, and that's the main focus of a Ravenclaw. And Ravenclaw is also the smarter house. They're the ones that are considered.
And Jim, your 15-second rebuttal when you're ready.
I think you just helped prove my point, Eli, with the point that you brought up about the Infinity Stone. He has such a loyalty to the stone, he would have let people die for it because it meant protecting Carmitage and all of that, and the people that he is sworn to protect, which just accentuates his loyalty in general. All
right. I'll start. I thought Eli kind of had that when he said Ravenclaw, if I'm going to be completely honest, based on my knowledge of Ravenclaw, and he brought up the intelligence aspect, which is a big part of Doctor Strange. But Jim came out of nowhere with the Hufflepuff by bringing up the loyalty, and he brought up in Infinity War with the loyalty aspect. I do think Eli countered that kind of well by saying he doesn't care about the stone, and Jim didn't really do much to prove that. So as I'm talking a lot, I'm going to give the point to Eli because I think he just trumped that a little bit. Robert.
Yeah, I agree. I think Eli had this one. I think Jim had a really good opening, and then his rebuttal kind of counteracted itself, that he has loyalty to the stone, so he's willing to let people die, but he also has loyalty to those people that he swore to protect, that he is now letting die. So I thought Jim got a little bit mixed up there. I thought Eli had a great opening and a great rebuttal, so yeah, Eli.
All right, so Eli has the point. Dom, what would you said?
Yeah, I would have said Eli as well, because again, Jim, with his points that he brought up, didn't really bring anything up outside of loyalty, versus if anything, Eli brought up in a very good rebuttal that Doctor Strange has proved that he is not the most loyal when it comes to it, and that he is very loyal to himself over anybody else, versus his intelligence kind of takes precedence with that character. So for that, I would have said Eli.
Alrighty, so it is now 4-2. Eli getting his second
point. Come on, guys,
here.
He's a Slytherin.
That's what I said too. I thought he'd be a Slytherin. All right, so
I only had the image of him studying.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a good argument. Your next speed round question, which if Jim gets it, ends the game. If Eli gets it, we keep going. What is the best Disney soundtrack?
Lion King.
Oh, Jesus.
Eli says Lion King.
I
still getting an answer here.
Do it, Jim.
We'll go.
I'm gonna go with Hercules.
Ooh. All right. Lion King versus Hercules. Again, Eli, you went first, which means you're gonna have 20 seconds when you're ready.
When you look at Lion King as a soundtrack, it has 3 incredible hits that Elton John sings and are on the radio. Can You Feel the Love Tonight, Circle of Life, and I Just Can't Wait to Be King. Even to go any further, it has 3 songs that were nominated for Best Original Song at the Academy Awards: Hakuna Matata, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, and The Circle of Life. And that makes Lion King have the best soundtrack of any Disney film.
All right, Jim, 20 seconds when you're ready.
Hercules has the best soundtrack because with songs like Go the Distance, you have slower songs. Then you have the Gospel Truth, which is these very fun, different kind of songs that have like the kind of gospel churchy feel to them. And then you have the Danny DeVito song, If You Want to Be a Hero, with the training montage, as well as Zero to Hero, which also is the gospel singers, but in a different tone.
All right. Eli, your 15-second rebuttal when you're ready.
when you spoke about Hercules' soundtrack, you only spoke actually about one hit, which is Go to Dixon, while Lion King has 3 hits, and you can listen to all of them on a soundtrack, on the radio, and on a soundtrack. And Elton John kills it with every single song that he writes in Lion King. Circle of Life, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, Just Can't Wait to Be King.
All right, Jim, your 15 seconds when you're ready.
The Lion King soundtrack is so vastly overrated that it was actually even picked by Nico in the last one. That's how overrated it is. All you really have to go on is that it's Elton John, and you're just going based off of, oh, it's Elton John, so pick Elton John because it's Elton John and that they were nominated for a bunch of Oscars.
Time. All right. We'll start with Dom on this one. Where are you leaning?
Tough one, but I am gonna have to go Eli only because he seemed to bring up a couple different points versus Jim. Jim only really talked about what songs it seemed like he could remember from the Hercules soundtrack and that the Lion King soundtrack is overrated versus Eli actually attempted to make an argument as to why the Lion King soundtrack was actually a better soundtrack. So for that, I'm going to give it to Eli.
All right, I'll go next. I thought the same, but the opposite. I thought Eli was only listing songs and credentials that he could remember, whereas Jim actually gave me the differentiating songs on the soundtrack. When I first heard the two, I was like, I wonder what he's going to say about Hercules, because all I can remember is Go the Distance. And not only did he give me Go the Distance and what it means to the soundtrack, he gave me the other songs and what they mean to the soundtrack and the differentiating tones and styles and songs on the soundtrack. That kind of made it different, whereas Eli only kept listing songs and what they got nominated for. So I would give it to Jim. Thoughts, Robert?
Yeah, so this one was really, really tough. I think both players had pretty even openings, and it really came down to the rebuttals there. I think both players just kind of listed songs off and were like, hey, that makes a good soundtrack. I do think Jim analyzed why it's more important to the soundtrack by each individual song with the time that he had, whereas Eli just listed off Elton John Oscars songs. While that is very powerful and while I think the Lion King soundtrack is probably better, I think Eli said those exact same things again in his second 15 seconds. Again, he said the Oscar nominations. Again, he said Elton John kills it, which he had already said before. I think Eli repeated himself again, and I think Jim had a new argument in his rebuttal, so I am going to give that point to Jim.
All right, and with that, your winner, Jim the Wolf Green, with a score of 5-2.
Man, I really thought I had that one.
That was a really strong debate from two really strong competitors.
You got me sweating, Eli. You got me sweating.
Yeah, look, I honestly thought that Lion King soundtrack, I was like, I got this because Elton John's proven himself as an Oscar. I didn't mention the Grammys, though.
Well, you said Elton John's Oscars first and in the second argument.
And I mentioned how they were on the radio. How many songs from...
You said that in his first, and yeah.
And it was kind of the exact same argument Nico used when he picked Lion King as the best Disney musical.
There's got to be something
so with that, we had two really strong debates and a lot of great arguments had today. So I'm going to start by talking to Eli. How do you feel about your performance in that Nerdgasm?
Well, even though I didn't win, I'd still feel strong because based off what all the judges said, each of the arguments were very close. And I will have to say, I feel like I had a strong performance, though I didn't win. You all three of you said that it was very close. So, I'm going to do this again. Maybe next time I can do better. Maybe next time I won't repeat myself. Afterwards, I found, I'm repeating myself. I need to stop doing that. But I kept on doing it. I'm like, oh, that's not good. I'm losing now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. You did bring some good points and a lot of really cool perspectives. I definitely want to see you back this season, and I think I have an opponent for you in mind, but we'll discuss it off air. And now I want to go and talk to our winner today, Jim. Feel about that victory?
Well, after hanging 0 points in a full match, outscoring myself by 5 in that feels really good. And it feels good to win again. And Eli, I really did think Eli had some great arguments there, and I can see why most of the decisions were split down the middle. And it was it came down to that third judge most of the time. yeah, it was really fun, and yeah, I look forward to doing this again and screaming at people.
Absolutely. In fact, I think I definitely know we will not be done with you because I think I'm going to bring you back in October for a match again. I think I have some opponents for you lined up. But with that, these are two competitors that were great. We definitely are not done with them this season. They both played really excellently. And now I want to throw it to my judges. What did you guys think of this match? Starting with Dom. Oh, Robert first. All right, go ahead, Robert.
It was a good match. Like Jim said, both or almost every single question was down the middle, and it took that third judge to really decide. So Eli still brought up some really, really, really good points. I think almost every single round throughout what we had 8 or 9 rounds, I think through every single one, Eli was leading through the opening argument. I think he had a lot of really, really, really great points. I just think there were a couple times where we needed to hear a little bit more, a little bit different from Eli. So the things that he was repeating were really, really valid and really, really, really good arguments. Just needed to hear something a little bit different a couple times. But either way, it was still a good match, and I look forward to seeing them both back soon.
Absolutely. And Dom, what were your thoughts on this debate?
A lot of fun here, definitely. I definitely wasn't as probably as helpful and as cooperative as I probably could have been, only because this is my first time. But for the arguments and just the players and just the overall enthusiasm and passion, I definitely got a lot of enjoyment out of this. I hope to definitely be back one day, not just for judging, but also for competing as well.
I can definitely tell you, you will be here this season because I have your opponent. And it's going to come in the first week of October against your buddy Jay Burns.
Hey, that's going to be dope. As long as there's a last Jedi question that is thrown in there, I am all good.
All right. Well, we'll definitely see you competing this season. We will see you back this season as well, hopefully at the desk as well as competing. Same for you, Robert. I'm working on getting a special opponent for you if it works. I think you know exactly who I'm talking about. All right. But with that, this has been Nerdgasm. I'll throw it to plugs and start with Jim. Where can they find you?
You can find me hosting various matches off of camera right now, but you can find me hosting various matches all over multiplex. I just had a team match against with Drake against Eli and Dan on Worldwide Movie Games. I think that sounds right. Check that out, and wherever co-host says, you can find me there.
All right. And Eli, where can they find you?
You can find me at Mr. Eli Mac on Twitter, Eli McCaig on Facebook, at Mr. Eli Mac on Instagram, I think. Again, as Jim just said, there was a match, The Revenant versus Book of Eli. Audio only because video corrupted, which is okay. Audio's fine. I've been told I have a face for audio. And you can find me, this is probably airing after the 2 big matches that I have against Robert and for the triple threat, so you can watch those matches afterwards. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right. And Dom, where can they find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Movie Nerd Reviews. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Movie Nerd Reviews. Also subscribe to the other YouTube channel that myself and Jay Burns do, where we react to movies. That is Friendly Neighborhood Movie Nerds, all separate words. Also go to either one of my 2 websites, movienerdreviews.com or Dom81797. And of course, you can find me playing in all of the different leagues around here, Jack of all trivia, multiplex, full metal, and worldwide movie games. And follow me on Instagram at Dominic Rizzi. Ooh, almost forgot about that last one.
All right. And Robert Parker, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at RBRTPRKR98. It's my first and last name of vowels plus a year. You can find me doing my weekly podcast with my friend Zach Ford, everywhere podcasts are listened to, and that's called the Fireside Chit Chat. We just blabble about movies, music, and other pop culture stuff. You can find me hosting and being an admin for a very similar league to this one called Movie Battleground, another movie debate league that is under the umbrella of the Worldwide Movie Games Network channel, as well as its own Movie Battleground Facebook page. And that's about it. You can find me on various matches in Multiplex, Full Metal, and Movie Battleground and all Worldwide Movie Games stuff. And I'm kind of just around.
All right. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Caleb Coho. That is KALEBKOHO. You can find me on YouTube, Caleb Coho, where I do music, vlogs, all sorts of fun stuff like that. On Coho Productions, you can find my film trailers, some fun stuff I do involving film over there. Schmodown reactions coming soon, stuff like that. You can also find my movie Chick Part 2 out right now on Caleb Coho and Coho Productions on YouTube. It's free. Check that out. You can also find my album Shoot for Teens with my group The Forks on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you consume your digital music. That one is not free. But you can also find me right here hosting various shows and being an admin here for Multiplex Entertainment, hosting Fandom Fights with Kane McMillan. You can find me hosting Let's Make a Movie every other month with Jake Marangoni and Kane McMillan, where we go live and you give us the criteria to make short films. We'll be debuting our short films at the end of September right here on Multiplex Entertainment. You can also find me here hosting Multiplex Fantasy Football every Wednesday with Tim Smith. And you can find me hosting Get It Right the First Time, a new show and podcast with Kane McMillan, where we pick movies that the other has not seen yet and watch it for the first time and get it right the first time when we talk about it. And it's going to be really cool. That should be debuting soon, with our first episode being on Avengers Infinity War. Next, you can find me hosting Nerdgasm every Saturday. Yeah, that's about it. So from me, I have been Caleb. That has been Dom, Eli, Robert, Jim. And this has been Nerdgasm. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you all next week.